The small town of Pinewood hadn't changed much in 15 years. The same faded welcome sign still stood at the town limits, the same cracks ran through the sidewalks downtown, and sadly, the same old ways of thinking still haunted certain corners of the community. Anthony Clark drove his rental car slowly down Maple Street, taking in the sights of his childhood hometown. Memories flooded back with each familiar landmark: the corner store where he bought candy as a kid, the park where he played basketball, and the church his grandmother had dragged him to every Sunday. 15 years was a long time, but some things stayed with you forever. To most folks in town, Anthony was just another man coming home to visit family. Nobody knew he'd spent the last decade and a half working as one of the CIA's top field operatives, handling missions so classified that even mentioning their locations would cause problems. Anthony had faced down terrorists, dismantled trafficking rings, and gathered intelligence that had saved countless lives. But none of that mattered here in Pinewood. Here, he was just another black man in a town with a troubled history. "Mom's going to be so happy to see these," Anthony said to himself, glancing at the bag of her favorite pastries on the passenger seat. His mother's health had been declining over the past year, and this might be his last chance to spend time with her before his next overseas assignment. He had only 3 days in town before Judy called again. As Anthony turned onto Oak Drive, he noticed a police cruiser pull out behind him. He checked his speed, exactly at the limit. His turn signal had been used properly. His rental had no issues with the taillights. Still, the cruiser followed closely, its presence like a shadow he couldn't shake. "Here we go," Anthony muttered, his hands instinctively moving to the proper 10 and 2 position on the steering wheel. Working for the CIA had taught him to notice patterns, and this pattern was all too familiar from his youth in Pinewood. The Pinewood Police Department had a reputation, one that hadn't improved since Anthony left town. Chief Patterson ran his department like a personal fiefdom, and rumors about targeted harassment had followed him for years. Anthony had heard stories from his mother during their phone calls, stories about neighbors and church friends being pulled over for routine checks that somehow only seemed to happen to people who looked like him. Anthony's phone rang through the car's Bluetooth. It was his CIA handler, Diane. "How's the hometown visit going?" she asked. "Just got in," Anthony replied, eyes flicking to his rearview mirror where the police cruiser remained. "Already getting the welcome wagon treatment." Diane understood immediately. "Remember protocol if anything happens. You're there as a private citizen, not an operative. The agency can't have any official involvement in local matters." "I know the drill," Anthony said. "Just checking in with Mom and then heading back out for the Thompson assignment." "That assignment is critical," Diane emphasized. "National security implications. 3 days, Clark. Then you're needed back." "Understood." Anthony ended the call as he pulled onto his mother's street. The small, well-kept bungalow where he grew up came into view. His mother's flower beds were still immaculate. The neighbors must be helping her keep them up. The police cruiser finally drove past, but Anthony noticed how slowly the officers inside examined him and his vehicle. As he parked in the driveway, Anthony took a deep breath. For the next 3 days, he would try to be just a son visiting his sick mother. Not a CIA operative with 15 years of covert experience. Not a man who spoke 7 languages and had neutralized threats across 4 continents. Here, he needed to be invisible in the way black men sometimes found safer. His mother appeared at the door before he even knocked, her face lighting up despite her frailty. "My boy is home," she said, arms outstretched. Anthony embraced her gently, feeling how much smaller she seemed than during his last visit. "I brought your favorites," he said, holding up the pastry bag. "Always thinking of your mama," she smiled. Come in, come in. Tell me everything you can about this consulting work that keeps you away so long." Anthony smiled. If she only knew the half of it. Neither of them noticed the police cruiser that had circled back, now parked across the street, the 2 officers inside watching Anthony's every move. Anthony spent the evening with his mother, helping her take her medicine and listening to her stories about the neighborhood. Around 9 p.m., she mentioned she was running low on her heart medication. "I can run to the pharmacy now," Anthony offered. "The 24-hour one is still open by the highway, right?" His mother nodded weakly. "You're a good son. But be careful driving at night around here. Things haven't changed much." Anthony squeezed her hand. "I'll be fine, Mom. Just a quick trip." The night air was cool as Anthony got back into his rental car. The pharmacy was only 15 minutes away. He drove carefully, using his turn signals, stopping completely at every stop sign. Years of training had taught him to be methodical, to notice details. Like the police cruiser that had been parked down the street from his mother's house, now pulling out to follow him. Anthony sighed. He knew this game all too well. Sure enough, about halfway to the pharmacy, flashing lights appeared in his mirror. Anthony pulled over immediately, positioning his car perfectly. He placed his hands on the steering wheel where they could be seen and took a deep breath. 2 officers approached, one on each side of the car. The taller one shined a flashlight directly in Anthony's eyes. "License and registration," the officer demanded without introducing himself or explaining why he'd stopped Anthony. "Officer, may I ask why I'm being pulled over?" Anthony asked calmly. "You ran through a stop sign back at Pine and Elm," the officer said. His nameplate read Officer Reynolds. Anthony knew that was a lie. He had stopped fully, counted to 3, and proceeded carefully through that intersection. "Sir, I'm certain I came to a complete stop. Is your body camera on?" The footage would confirm that. The second officer, whose nameplate read Officer Briggs, circled around the car. "Step out of the vehicle, please." Anthony complied slowly, keeping his movements deliberate. "I'm reaching for my wallet to show you my ID," he said clearly before moving his hand. As Anthony handed over his license, Officer Reynolds smirked. "Not from around here anymore, are you? What brings you back to Pinewood?" "Visiting my mother. She's ill," Anthony replied. "And where are you headed this time of night?" "The pharmacy. My mother needs her heart medication." Officer Briggs was now searching Anthony's car without permission. Anthony noticed but said nothing. He'd been in far more dangerous situations than this. His CIA training kicked in as he carefully memorized every detail: the officers' badge numbers, the time, the exact location, what they said, how they moved. "What do we have here?" Officer Briggs suddenly announced, emerging from the car with a small bag of white powder. "Look what I found under the driver's seat." Anthony's face remained neutral, but his mind raced. That bag wasn't there before. He'd rented the car that morning and had checked it thoroughly, professional habit. "That's not mine," Anthony stated calmly. "And it wasn't in my car before you searched it." "They all say that," Officer Reynolds laughed. "Turn around, hands behind your back." As Anthony was being handcuffed, he subtly pressed a button on his wristwatch. A standard CIA-issued device that looked ordinary but contained a high-quality recording function. "You're making a mistake," Anthony said clearly for the recording. "That substance is not mine and was not in my vehicle before your search." "Save it for the judge," Officer Briggs said, pushing Anthony toward the patrol car. "We've got ourselves a drug dealer, Reynolds." As they drove away with Anthony in the back seat, the officers high-fived each other, not realizing that their target wasn't some random black man passing through town. They'd just arrested a CIA operative who had taken down criminal organizations and terrorist cells across the globe. Anthony sat silently in the back of the patrol car, his mind already mapping out his next steps. These small-town officers had no idea what they had just started or who they were really dealing with. The booking process at the Pinewood County Jail was familiar to Anthony, not because he'd been arrested before, but because he'd studied police procedures as part of his CIA training. He remained silent as they took his fingerprints and mugshot, observing everything with the keen eye of a trained operative. "One phone call," the desk sergeant said, pushing an outdated landline phone toward him. Anthony nodded, dialing a number few civilians would recognize. It wasn't his mother he called, nor a local lawyer. After 3 rings, a woman answered. "Secure line," Anthony said quietly. "Agent Clark, authorization code Tango 749 Echo. I've been compromised in Pinewood. Local police, false charges." "Understood," the voice replied. "Standard protocol." "Affirmative. Evidence recorded. We'll need extraction in 72 hours for the Thompson mission. Hold position. We'll handle it." Anthony hung up and was led to a cell. The cold concrete walls reminded him of a holding facility in Eastern Europe where he'd once been undercover. This situation was different, but the strategy would be similar: patience, observation, and letting his opponents underestimate him. The next morning, Anthony met his court-appointed lawyer in a small interview room. Lisa Chen looked young and overworked, with dark circles under her eyes and a stack of files under her arm. "Anthony Clark?" she asked, settling across from him. "I'm Lisa Chen from the Public Defender's Office. I'll be representing you on the drug possession charge." Anthony studied her. "Thank you for taking my case." Lisa flipped through his file. "Says here you were caught with 20 grams of cocaine. That's a serious charge that could mean 3 to 5 years. "The drugs were planted," Anthony stated calmly. "Officers Reynolds and Briggs pulled me over claiming I ran a stop sign, which I didn't. Officer Briggs searched my car without consent and suddenly found drugs that weren't there before." Lisa sighed. "That's what everyone says, Mr. Clark." "I understand your skepticism," Anthony replied. "But I'd like to make an unusual request. Don't push for a quick hearing or early trial date." Lisa looked confused. "Most clients want to get out as soon as possible. Your mother is sick, correct? Don't you want to get back to her?" "I've arranged for a neighbor to check on her," Anthony said. "I need time. Can you delay the proceedings for about 2 weeks? I could file some motions that might buy time, but why would you want to stay in jail longer?" Anthony leaned forward slightly. "Ms. Chen, I can't tell you everything right now, but I need you to trust that I have good reasons. The officers who arrested me are corrupt. They planted evidence, and they've likely done it before to others." Lisa studied him curiously. Most of her clients were either angry or terrified. Anthony seemed neither. He spoke with the confidence of someone who had a plan. "There's something you're not telling me," she said. Anthony smiled slightly. "Several things, actually. But everything I'm withholding is for your protection as much as mine. All I ask is that you delay the proceedings and prepare as if we're going to trial." "Chief Patterson is pushing the DA to make an example of you," Lisa warned. "Something about too many outsiders bringing drugs into Pinewood." "Let them prepare their case," Anthony said. "We'll be ready when the time comes." As Lisa left, Anthony returned to his cell. Through the small window, he could see a portion of the street. A nondescript van had parked across from the jail. To anyone else, it looked like a telephone company vehicle. Anthony knew better. His team had arrived. Over the next few days, Anthony watched as Officer Reynolds and Officer Briggs strutted around the jail, occasionally stopping by his cell to taunt him. "Hope you're comfortable," Reynolds sneered. "You'll be staying with us for a long time." Anthony just smiled politely. "We'll see about that." What they didn't know was that with each passing hour, CIA operatives were quietly gathering evidence throughout Pinewood, building a case that would soon shatter the corrupt foundation of the town's police department. The ordinary-looking telephone company van moved around Pinewood with purpose. Inside, 3 CIA operatives worked with military precision, their equipment far more advanced than anything the local police had ever seen. "Agent Rodriguez, what's our status?" asked the team leader, Tanya, as she monitored several screens showing surveillance footage. "I've accessed their database," Rodriguez replied, typing rapidly. "It's worse than we thought. They've done this at least 27 times in the past 3 years." The third agent, Kim, looked up from his station. "Pattern is clear. All victims are minorities, mostly out-of-towners passing through. Traffic stops leading to discoveries of drugs. Civil asset forfeitures follow, and the money disappears." Tanya nodded grimly. "And our guy got caught in their web." "Clark picked the wrong town to visit his mother," Rodriguez said. "Or the right one," Tanya countered. "If anyone can break this open, it's him." While the CIA team gathered evidence, Lisa Chen sat in the county library researching similar cases. The pattern disturbed her. Over the past 3 years, drug arrests in Pinewood had skyrocketed, almost all involving minorities. Most pled guilty under pressure, accepting lesser sentences rather than fighting charges they couldn't afford to contest. Anthony's calm confidence bothered her. Most innocent people were desperate and frightened. He was neither. Lisa pulled out her phone and called a friend at the state police. "Hey Mike, can you run a background check on someone for me? Something deeper than the usual." "Who's the guy?" Mike asked. "Client named Anthony Clark. Something's off about his case." "Give me a day," Mike replied. In his cell, Anthony received another visitor. Chief Patterson himself, flanked by Officers Reynolds and Briggs. "Mr. Clark," the chief said with a cold smile, "I hope you're finding our accommodations to your liking." Anthony sat up on his thin mattress. "Could use better food, but I've had worse." "Have you now?" Patterson raised an eyebrow. "Interesting. Most folks say this is as bad as it gets." "Perspective is everything, Chief." Patterson leaned against the cell door. "Here's my perspective. You're looking at serious time, but I'm a reasonable man. Tell us who your supplier is, and maybe we can work something out." Anthony smiled politely. "That would be difficult, considering I don't have a supplier for drugs I don't use or sell." Reynolds stepped forward. "Don't get smart with the chief." Patterson raised a hand to calm his officer. "My men found drugs in your car. That's all a jury needs to know." "Interesting legal theory," Anthony replied. "But I think we'll let the justice system run its course." After they left, Anthony lay back on his bunk, thinking of his mother. He'd managed to get a message to their neighbor through Lisa, ensuring she was taken care of. Now he could focus on the bigger picture. Meanwhile, across town, the CIA team had placed listening devices in the police station. That evening, they hit pay dirt. "Did you hear what happened to that guy from the Rodriguez case last year?" Officer Briggs said, unaware he was being recorded. "Tried to file a complaint saying we planted evidence." Reynolds laughed. "What happened to that complaint again?" Patterson took care of it. Same way he took care of the money from the guy's car. Split 3 ways, as usual. This new guy, Clark, his car was a rental. No cash, but maybe we can get the rental company to pay impound fees. Worth a try. Patterson's already talking to the judge about the asset forfeiture. In the van, Tanya smiled grimly as she listened. "We've got them, recording every word." Back at the jail, Lisa visited Anthony again, looking troubled. "My friend at the state police got back to me about your background check," she said quietly. "Did he now?" Anthony replied calmly. "Most of your file is redacted. Government clearance flags everywhere." She lowered her voice. "Who are you really, Mr. Clark?" Anthony studied her for a moment, making a decision. "Someone who can help you break open years of corruption in this town. But I need to know, are you willing to take on the entire Pinewood Police Department?" Lisa thought about all the cases she'd lost against suspicious evidence, about all the people who couldn't afford proper defense. "Yes," she said firmly. "I'm ready." 2 weeks after his arrest, Anthony sat across from Lisa in the jail's meeting room. The trial was just days away, and it was time to share more of the truth. "I need to show you something," Anthony said, glancing at the security camera in the corner. Lisa followed his gaze. "That camera hasn't worked in years. Budget cuts." Anthony nodded and reached into the lining of his jail-issued shirt, pulling out a small leather wallet. He flipped it open to reveal an official government ID with security features Lisa had never seen before. "You work for the government," she whispered, studying the ID. "But this doesn't say which agency." "For your protection, I can't tell you everything," Anthony explained. "But I can tell you I'm not a criminal, and those drugs were planted. My watch recorded the entire traffic stop." Lisa's eyes widened. "You have proof? Why didn't you tell me sooner?" "Because this isn't just about my case. It's about exposing years of corruption. Reynolds and Briggs have done this dozens of times, and Chief Patterson covers for them. They seize assets, split the money, and target people who can't fight back." "I suspected something like this for years," Lisa admitted. "But how do we prove it?" "My colleagues have been gathering evidence," Anthony said carefully. "Phone recordings, database records, witness statements from previous victims. We have enough to bring down the whole department." "Your colleagues?" Lisa raised an eyebrow. "You mean the people in that van that's been moving around town?" Anthony smiled slightly. "You've got sharp eyes. So what's the plan for trial?" "Let them present their case first," Anthony explained. "Let Reynolds and Briggs commit perjury under oath. Then we'll dismantle their story piece by piece. But we need to be prepared for what happens after. Once they realize who I really am, they'll try to discredit you too." Lisa straightened her shoulders. "I grew up poor in this town, Mr. Clark. I've been underestimated my whole life. Let them try." Across town, Chief Patterson sat in his office with the district attorney, Thomas Wilson. This case should be straightforward, Patterson said. My officers found drugs in his car. Open and shut. The DA looked less confident. This defense attorney has been filing unusual motions, requesting body camera footage, asking for complete service records on your officers. Something's off. Chen is a public defender with too many cases and not enough experience, Patterson scoffed. Nothing to worry about. Still, I'd like this wrapped up quickly. Have your officers ready to testify clearly and simply. After the DA left, Patterson called Reynolds and Briggs into his office. The trial is in 3 days, he said. Stick to the script. You pulled him over for running a stop sign, followed procedure, and found drugs. Nothing complicated. What about our body cameras? Briggs asked nervously. Chen requested the footage. Technical malfunction, Patterson replied smoothly. Already handled. None of them noticed the tiny listening device under Patterson's desk, capturing every word. Back in her small office, Lisa spread out the notes Anthony had given her. 27 cases with similar patterns. All involved minorities, all involved traffic stops for minor violations, all resulted in drug charges and asset seizures. Her phone rang. It was her contact at the state police. Lisa, I did more digging on your client, Mike said, his voice hushed. I got a call from way up the chain telling me to back off. Whoever Clark is, he's connected. This isn't just federal, it's intelligence community. Thanks, Mike, Lisa replied. That's helpful to know. She hung up and looked at Anthony's case file with new understanding. She wasn't just defending an innocent man, she was partnering with someone who had resources and training beyond anything Pinewood had ever seen. As the sun set over the small town, Anthony lay on his jail bunk, mentally rehearsing every detail of their strategy. Tomorrow, Lisa would file their final motions. In 3 days, they would step into the courtroom. And if everything went according to plan, by the end of the trial, the corrupt system that had terrorized countless innocent people would finally crumble. The game was about to begin, and Anthony had spent his life preparing for moments exactly like this one. The Pinewood County Courthouse hadn't changed in decades. Its wooden benches were worn smooth from years of anxious people waiting for their fate to be decided. Today, the small courtroom was unusually crowded. Word had spread about the drug case against the out-of-towner, and locals filled the seats, curious to see the drama unfold. Anthony sat beside Lisa at the defense table, dressed in a simple but well-fitted suit his colleagues had arranged for him. Across the aisle, the district attorney shuffled papers confidently, while Officers Reynolds and Briggs sat behind him, smirking. Chief Patterson took a seat in the front row, nodding reassuringly to his officers. Judge Howard Walker entered, and everyone rose. At 65, Judge Walker had seen it all in his 30 years on the bench. He was known for running a tight courtroom and having little patience for delays. Case number 2025 CR 187, State v. Anthony Clark, the clerk announced. Charges of possession with intent to distribute. The DA rose to deliver his opening statement, painting Anthony as a drug dealer who came to prey on their small town. Anthony remained calm, his face revealing nothing as the prosecutor spun his tale. The evidence will show, concluded the DA, that this defendant brought dangerous drugs into our community, and thanks to the sharp eyes of our dedicated police officers, he was caught before he could distribute his poison. When Lisa's turn came, she spoke clearly and confidently. The defense will prove that my client is innocent, that the drugs found in his car were planted by the arresting officers, and that this case represents just one example of a long-standing pattern of corruption and racial profiling in the Pinewood Police Department. Murmurs rippled through the courtroom. Judge Walker banged his gavel. Order. Officer Reynolds was the first witness called. He described the traffic stop in practice detail, claiming Anthony had run a stop sign and acted suspiciously. And what did you observe when Officer Briggs searched the vehicle? The DA asked. He discovered a bag of white powder under the driver's seat, which later tested positive for cocaine. Lisa's cross-examination was methodical. Officer Reynolds, was your body camera functioning that night? Reynolds shifted uncomfortably. No, ma'am. Technical malfunction. Interesting. And Officer Briggs's camera? Same issue. What a coincidence, Lisa remarked. Now, you testified that my client ran a stop sign at Pine and Elm. Are you aware that there's a traffic camera at that intersection? Reynolds paled slightly. I wasn't aware of that. Let me refresh your memory, Lisa said, approaching with a folder. The defense requested footage from that camera. Would you like to see what it shows? The DA jumped up. Objection. This wasn't provided in discovery. Your Honor, Lisa replied calmly, we received this footage yesterday and immediately sent it to the prosecution office. Judge Walker frowned at the DA. Is that correct? The DA fumbled. It may have arrived, Your Honor, but I haven't reviewed it yet. Then perhaps you should have, the judge said dryly. Objection overruled. Proceed, Counselor. Lisa played the footage, which clearly showed Anthony's car coming to a complete stop at the intersection. Reynolds squirmed in his seat. Officer Reynolds, would you like to revise your testimony? Lisa asked. Before he could answer, the courtroom doors opened. A tall woman in a crisp suit entered, followed by two men in dark suits. They walked directly to the judge and showed him credentials, requesting a sidebar. Judge Walker's eyes widened slightly as he examined their IDs. He waved the DA and Lisa forward. The gallery buzzed with whispers as the five people spoke in hushed tones. Anthony remained seated, his face calm but his eyes alert, watching Chief Patterson, who was suddenly looking very nervous. After several minutes, Judge Walker cleared his throat. We're going to take a 30-minute recess. Bailiff, please secure the courtroom. No one leaves. As the judge exited, the woman who had entered approached Anthony, leaning down to whisper something in his ear. He nodded once. Chief Patterson stood up, his face red. What is going on here? Who are these people? The woman turned to him with a cold smile. Federal agents, Chief Patterson. And you're about to have a very long, very unpleasant conversation about your department's activities over the past 3 years. The officers' smug expressions had vanished, replaced by growing panic as they realized their carefully constructed case was crumbling and something much bigger was taking its place. When court resumed 30 minutes later, everything had changed. The gallery was now half filled with serious-looking men and women in dark suits. The tall woman who had entered earlier now sat directly behind the prosecution table, her presence causing the DA to nervously shuffle his papers. Judge Walker cleared his throat, his expression more serious than anyone had ever seen. In light of new evidence presented to this court, I am dismissing all charges against Anthony Clark. The courtroom erupted in whispers. Chief Patterson stood up, his face red. Your Honor, this is outrageous. You can't just... Sit down, Chief, Judge Walker ordered sharply. This dismissal comes at the recommendation of federal authorities. As if on cue, the courtroom doors opened again. 2 FBI agents entered, walking directly to where Officers Reynolds and Briggs sat. The first agent spoke loudly enough for everyone to hear. Officers Reynolds and Briggs, you're under arrest for civil rights violations, evidence tampering, and corruption under color of authority. The officers were handcuffed right there in the courtroom. Chief Patterson tried to slip out a side door, but found his way blocked by 2 more agents. Chief Patterson, you're also under arrest for conspiracy, obstruction of justice, and misappropriation of funds. As the 3 police officers were led away, Anthony finally allowed himself a small smile. Lisa turned to him, still in shock. What just happened? Justice, Anthony replied simply. Later that afternoon, Anthony walked out of the courthouse a free man. His CIA colleagues maintained a professional distance, their job now shifting to damage control. The official story would never mention Anthony's actual role as a CIA operative. Lisa caught up with him on the courthouse steps. So, is CIA agent Anthony Clark even your real name? Anthony smiled. Some parts are real. Will you tell me which parts? My first name. The rest is classified. He looked at her with genuine respect. You did amazing work in there. I had good material to work with, she replied, then lowered her voice. What happens now? To all those other cases, those are the people who were framed. Check your email tonight, Anthony said. My colleagues left you a special file with evidence for 27 other cases, enough to overturn every false conviction and file civil suits against the department. A sleek black car pulled up to the curb. Anthony knew his time in Pinewood was almost over. I have one more stop to make before I leave town. 30 minutes later, Anthony sat beside his mother's bed, holding her frail hand. "Everything's taken care of, Mom. Those officers won't be troubling anyone else." His mother squeezed his hand weakly. "I always knew you were doing important work, even if you couldn't tell me what it was. I've seen the news over the years, those conflicts in faraway places. Sometimes I'd think, I bet my boy is there, helping somehow." Anthony smiled, neither confirming nor denying. "I need to leave again tomorrow. Another assignment." "You go do what you need to do," she said. "Just come back when you can." "I promise," he whispered. The next morning, as Anthony prepared to leave town, his phone rang. It was Lisa. "I just got a call from the Justice Department," she said, her voice excited. "They've offered me a position with their Civil Rights Division. They said I came highly recommended." "You deserve it," Anthony replied. "Pinewood is losing a great attorney, but the country is gaining a powerful advocate." "Did you have something to do with this?" Anthony smiled. "Let's just say I know people who recognize talent when they see it." As he drove past the Pinewood Police Department, Anthony noticed workers taking down the old sign. The news had reported that state authorities would be overseeing the department while a complete restructuring took place. The new acting chief was a woman from the state police with a strong record of community policing. Small towns could change, Anthony thought. Sometimes they just needed a push in the right direction. At the town limits, he didn't look back. Another mission waited, another place where his unique skills were needed. But for the first time in years, Anthony felt something beyond professional satisfaction. He had brought justice to his hometown and, in doing so, had made it safer for people who looked like him. Sometimes, fighting the smaller battles was just as important as the global ones.